So good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining us today for an exciting exploration into the world of artificial intelligence and its transformative impact on higher education. I'm Caroline Silva, VP and Head of Global Marketing for invenioLSI, and today I'm thrilled to be your host for this webinar. We have a compelling topic to dive into, so before we start engaging into our presentation, I just want to go over just a couple housekeeping rules for you, so you can do the next slide. So one is we'll be sending you a recording of this webinar via email after the webinar airs, so you can expect that on March 6th. So please keep an eye out for that in your inboxes. Second, we'll be encouraging you to ask questions. This is such an interesting topic, so we know you're going to have a lot of questions, so please send them to us during the webinar. You can pop them right into the chat feature of GoToWebinar. We'll either answer them live, and if we don't get to them, we will answer them in that follow-up email, so keep an eye out for that. The last thing, and super important to us, is to take a moment and take the survey at the end of the webinar. We're always looking for ways to improve. We really want your opinion, and we want to know how we did. So definitely do that. So next slide here, I want to first go over a little bit about what you can expect. We are going to meet our speakers today. We have some amazing speakers from invenioLSI and UC San Diego. We're so excited to have them here today. We'll be going through an invenioLSI glance and then a look at UC San Diego. We'll then hand it over to one of our speakers for an SLCM strength of function, SLCM functional modules, SLCM student overview, SLCM administration overview, and then hand it over to UC San Diego for a student activity hub and AI reporting. So that's what you can expect in our agenda. So now let's just take a quick look at who's going to be speaking today. Great. So first up is Tim McCready. He's our SLCM solution architect here at invenioLSI. So Tim, feel free to introduce yourself here.
Hey everyone, my name is Tim McCready and I'm an SLCM solution architect with invenioLSI. I began my journey in the higher education ERP space back in 2002, where I worked on the first implementation of what was back then called SAP Campus Management. It's now called SAP Student Lifecycle Management, but it was the first implementation within the US, and now I have the pleasure of joining UC San Diego as they take on their own SLCM journey. So glad to be here.
Awesome. Thanks, Tim. Our next speaker is Vince Kellen. He's the CIO for UC San Diego. So Vince, feel free to introduce yourself to the crowd here.
Yes, Vince Kellen here. I'm the CIO at UC San Diego. Been here CIO for about the last 7.5 years. I've been CIO in higher ed now for 20 years. And prior to that, I have a background in industry in the area of strategy and analytics and data. So pleasure to be here.
Awesome. Thanks, Vince. We're so excited to have you and can't wait for your portion of the presentation. So those are our speakers today. Next up, if you want to go to the next slide, I want to give you a little bit of an overview of invenioLSI. So for those of you who are new to the company, here's a quick glance. invenioLSI is a trusted consultancy and implementation partner for enterprise software solutions. We have SAP partnerships around the globe and specialize in higher education. That's where we got our start back in 1998 at MIT. And although we got our start in the US, we're now a fully global company with offices in UK, US, Middle East, APAC, India, and Mauritius. With a technical team of 400 strong, we're always focused on the latest and most advanced technologies today has to offer. So with over 1,400 people at invenioLSI, we are driven by helping millions of citizens around the world. And that's invenioLSI at a glance. And now I'm going to hand it back off to Vince so he can take you through UC San Diego.
UC San Diego is kind of a newer university established in 1960. But we're also a very large university of 44,000 students, about $8 billion of US in revenue each year, with a health mission, an education mission, a research mission, and of course, a housing and dining mission to support our students. We're certainly known for a lot of our top research and top faculty. We do about 1.8 billion of US dollars in research, so we're in the top 7 or 8 of research institutions in the US. And we're also known for our entrepreneurialism, pushing boundaries, challenging expectations, and doing things that good research universities do. So, pleasure.
Great. Thanks so much, Vince. And now, without further ado, I think we can just kind of dive right into our presentation. So, Tim, back to you and SLCM, strength and function.
Sure. Thanks so much. So for those of you who may be joining the webinar that are unfamiliar with SAP Student System, SAP Student System is called SAP Student Lifecycle Management. You'll hear us refer to it with the common acronym SLCM, and it's a comprehensive cloud-based solution that serves the entire student lifecycle. So what I want to do is kick things off by looking at the functional modules that are found within SLCM. And what you see here in this diagram is around the outside, starting with student recruiting. You'll see it goes all the way to admission, transfer articulation / equivalency determination, student financials, grading, academic advising, and you see that it ends with alumni engagement. Something that's really unique about SLCM, and I think an inherent strength with the solution, is the fact that as an institution, you can choose to implement all of this functionality, so all of the modules you see on the outside of the diagram, or you can pick and choose. For example, if you use a third-party application for admissions or for graduation audit, registration, whatever it might be, one of the inherent strengths of SLCM is the ability to seamlessly integrate with third-party or in-house applications. The integration engine with the solution offers real-time bi-directional integration capabilities, and SLCM also contains several out-of-the-box APIs for your more popular industry solutions, such as your learning management systems, room scheduling and optimization software, and even housing solutions. All right, so we can move on to the next slide. So another core strength and differentiator of SLCM is the ability to enhance the system. So what you see right here is something called SAP Business Technology Platform. This is an engine by which you can create your own custom applications. Obviously, AI, and of course, Vince is going to talk about that today. But there's also you have the ability to create custom tables, custom views, workflows, web applications, all of which seamlessly integrate with SLCM. So if you have some institutional processes that are very unique and perhaps utilize data that wouldn't commonly be found within a student system, that's not a problem, because using the business technology platform, you have an array of very powerful tools to create those custom applications and integrate them with SLCM. So what I want to do next, we'll go to the next slide now. And I want to take a look. I want to give you an idea of the user experience that SLCM offers. And what you're looking at here is the SLCM student overview page. So if I'm a student at UCSD, for example, and I go to my portal, this is the page I see. And this is the sort of the one-stop shop for anything a student needs to do from an academic perspective. So you see in the upper left-hand side of the screen, you see the My Personal Details box. So I see that I'm logged in the system as a student by the name of Zanetta Rice, and I see her unique student ID and her institutional email address. And then below that, I see the institution's contact information and even links out to their Facebook and Twitter or X pages. And then up at the very top, kind of top left, the application overview. This is how a student would submit an application for admission to the institution. And it's also where a student can track previously submitted applications and view the status of those applications. If you look beneath that, you see the financial link. So this is where a student does everything from setting up their payment information to viewing their account balance and paying their bills. And then over to the right of that, you see the academic links. And this is where a student spends the vast majority of their time dealing with the system. So this is where a student would, for example, set up their study plan, which is where they map out their coursework term to term from the time they're a freshman to the time they graduate in a particular program of study. It's also how I book courses or register for courses, how I view my schedule, view my grades, upload documents that may have been requested by the registrar's office, or even supplemental documents for the admissions process. Also, it's how I view my admission requirements. And again, I mentioned before how I track my admission application so that I can see, for example, for the Bachelor of Studies, for a particular Bachelor of Studies admission application, I still lack, or I still owe the institution an external transcript, or maybe a particular test score, letter of recommendation, whatever it might be. Also, there's a correspondence overview. So, for example, all correspondence that takes place between the institution and the student is stored in the system, and a student can go and download those different pieces of correspondence as a PDF. And if you look at the top middle of the screen, open task, so the system automatically will create tasks for a student. And for example, you see that this student has an overdue task of submitting their study plan. It was due on January 29th. And you see that the student also has an open task to meet with their study advisor on March 9th. You also see, if you go to the far right, there's the upcoming events. This is the calendar. And this calendar, so if a student were to click on a day of the calendar, they'll see not only their course schedule that day. So I have a class from 8 to 8:50 and Connor Hall, whatever it might be, but also I can see institutional events. So maybe there's a concert in the student union that night, there's a basketball game, baseball game. All of that information is integrated into this upcoming events calendar. So that's just to give you an idea of what the student overview looks like. So let's go on to the next slide, and I'll show you what the administrative overview page looks like. And you see that it looks just like the student overview page. And in fact, it is the same technology, it's the same URL. What's happening is in this page, I've logged on as an advisor by the name of Lisa Hightower. And what happens is this, when I log into the system reads my roles and authorizations to determine or dictate what cards I see. And I call these cards or links like the My Advisees card, going down the middle of the page under general information, the My Advisees card, my student groups, the track attendance card. So this is how an administrator, if I'm an advisor, the My Advisees card, it links out to an application. And again, I failed to mention this, and I want to mention this now. Everything you see here uses the latest and greatest UI5 technology, so it's compatible with any mobile device. But if I'm an advisor, I'd click the My Advisees card, for example, and I would see all sorts of information about my advisees. I can drill into their not only their academic work or their academic history, but their current bookings, all of their GPA information. I can view their transcripts, view notes that have been posted on a particular student, post my own notes as an advisor. There's also the track attendance. So if I'm a faculty member and I teach courses, this is where I would enter attendance for my classroom, for my class meetings. Also, I see online grading. That's how I would click to go review and submit grades for my students for a particular course or class. And then I see the My Workflow inbox, which is a tool. If I'm an approver on any type of request process, for example, if a student wants to take a leave of absence and I'm a reviewer and an approver in that process, anything workflow related that I'm involved in as an employee, I would access through the My Workflow inbox card. And there's many more cards. I'm just showing you just a few here. And then over on the right-hand side of the page, under the open task, just as a student sees their open task, an administrator or faculty member, they see their open task as well. So I can see that, for example, I need to submit IHL reports. Its upcoming due date is February 28th. And then I need to process grade change approvals, and I need to do that by March 19th. And again, same thing. I also have a calendar, the interactive calendar. So if I teach a couple of courses that day, I can click on the calendar, see what I'm teaching, where I'm teaching it, and also see institutional events as well. So as you can see, SLCM is a comprehensive student system. It supports the entire student life cycle. In my opinion, it provides unparalleled flexibility, and it can be implemented on a modular level. So I'll now turn it back over to you, Caroline, to continue the presentation.
Great. Thanks so much, Tim. That was a super informative and interesting overview. And if you're watching and you have questions for Tim, please make sure you pop them in that chat, because we'll definitely answer them either in the follow-up or the follow-up email. So definitely make sure you do that. So Tim, thanks again That was a great overview. And now I'd like to bring it back to Vince from UCSD as we dive into Student Activity Hub and AI. So Vince, you're up. Let's take us the audience through this.
Absolutely. Let's go to the next slide. And I'm going to explain our Student Activity Hub and then most importantly, our data and analytics strategy for the university. And one thing Tim did not talk about is the tremendous high-speed performance that the student lifecycle management has underneath it, powered by HANA. We're taking full advantage of that at our university for our data warehousing strategy. And then, of course, we have just selected, my user community has just selected the student lifecycle management solution. There's an incredible amount of power there that people begin to learn once they start to use it. And so I think that's a good thing. For us, it's caused us to carefully curate all of our enterprise content. That includes our data from a variety of source systems that we have, as well as now our web content and document contents as well. We've also worked very hard to develop a vibrant community of distributed analysts and users. So our big goal is to democratize knowledge, and our AI strategy is going to continue that. And then third, continuously improve. We've had a big investment in our campus in Lean Six Sigma. We have 5,000 staff trained in Lean Six Sigma. In my unit alone, 100% of my staff is trained in Lean Six Sigma. We have about 50 or 60 green belts in my unit and about a dozen black belts. We use that as the basis for being agile, iterative, and it actually lends itself really nicely to supporting what we're going to be doing with AI. The big tools we have is our SAP HANA is our data warehouse platform. Unlike many other universities, though, we've adopted a very different strategy for generative AI. We're going entirely on-premise within our supercomputer center. We're using open source tools. We have some investments in some of what I call the big AI vendors like Microsoft, Google, and OpenAI, but the bulk of our time and effort is in our Llama 2 on-premise AI platform, which we'll be talking about and why we're doing it. Next slide. First, our campus activity hubs are a collection of activity hubs in multiple domains. At our campus alone, we have a student activity hub, a finance activity hub, an employee activity hub, a research activity hub, a workflow activity hub, and a facilities activity hub. Our advancement is not yet built. That's coming in the coming couple years. But we have all the others in place. We actually have an IT project management activity hub, which is useful for us to monitor our work in all of our projects. On the student side, we integrate data from a variety of different solutions, including our LMS platform, which is Instructure Canvas. So we get all of the learning analytics and the real-time events that solution emits coming in. We also get data from our Open edX platform, which we use for some of our courses. We have a virtual advising system, another piece of software we get data from as well. So we're able to bring all that data in and use it for analysis purposes. The real moral of the story is because of the power of HANA, all these activity hubs link up perfectly. So we can mix and match data from research, employee, and finance with student. So if we have a student who participates in research, that data can be brought together and analyzed very, very easily. Same thing if the student is an employee and if there's any financial implications to things we're analyzing about the student. We call that blended analytics, the ability to bring multiple domains of data together. That's all done behind the scenes. Our users don't have to worry about or do any of that. So in our environment, everything is linked up very nicely. We're at about 8 billion rows of data and growing. And that may sound like a lot, but in HANA terms, we're still considered kind of a smaller implementation size. Next slide. We actually are partnering with other universities now. We have UC Merced as a university who's using our Student Activity Hub. We got a partnership going with Alabama State University, which is starting to use the Activity Hub, and then University of Washington. And so other universities are starting to take advantage of all this work that we've been doing. But we do this in a very collaborative way, more like institution-to-institution collaboration. So the goals here are to have service to the community, be very transparent, make this extremely affordable. Along the way, we are a HANA reseller for our activity hubs for other institutions should they wish to use it, which really, really makes HANA extremely affordable for universities. We use partners like invenioLSI, a big partner with us on this, because we cannot do all this work ourselves. Next slide. The architecture of the Activity Hub is fairly straightforward, and the good news is the only skill that's needed for us and for any of our partners who want to get deeper into the architecture to use is ANSI SQL, structured query language, and vanilla ANSI SQL at that. No other real skill is needed outside of a BI tool like Power BI or Cognos or Tableau or something like that. All the work in the Activity Hub that we develop as we design the solution is vanilla ANSI SQL. We do that very deliberately under this notion of democratization. We want to get lots of people to potentially participate in the environment. The architecture has 5 levels. An activity table, think of the activity table as a data lake. It brings data in from a variety of sources in a bit, I won't say a raw form, but in a fairly straightforward form. And then we take the data and put it through 4 layers of views. And these views are very classic SQL views that have been around for decades now. And the first layer is called a base view. It really has some basic things it has to do, but it really renders a small area of concern. Let's say student first name, last name, address. That would be a base view. An intermediate view is where we start to do more complex things and to make the analytics come to life. The curated view really works to transform column names to very user-friendly names. We give institutions, or will be shortly here, the ability to give pseudonyms to any column name we produce in the environment so they can call the column whatever they like. And the pseudonyms are introduced at that curated view layer. And then finally, the final curated view takes all those together. So for example, if we show a view called enrollment, which will show a student's enrollment in the class, that view contains not only all the enrollment columns, but it contains the demographic columns. It also includes the student statistics per term columns. And it also includes the retention indicators. Has the student been retained from first year to second year, first year to third year, et cetera? Have they made satisfactory progress from term to term or from year to year? All those metrics come along, which means the analyst never has to join data. They just simply pick the columns they want, put it into their particular workbook or BI tool, and start to model the data. Next slide. At a high level, the architecture kind of looks like this, where we have an activity table at the bottom. Don't worry about derived activity table. That's kind of a data science thing. It's useful for data scientists who want to do more interesting, complex sort of analysis, set up the analysis as data comes in. And then we have this base view layer, the BVs, and then the IVs above that, and then, of course, the curated views on top of that, as well as the FCV. We have an API layer wrapped around the whole thing. So any application that wants to get data out of, or in some cases push data to, there's an API layer to do that work. At our university, we have a lot of downstream systems that need access to basic student data. And we actually are going to do integration rather than directly with the student lifecycle management so that all the downstream apps don't have to talk to student lifecycle management. They will actually talk to our, they do now today, our Activity Hub API access. And this is exactly how we're going to talk to it via the AI platform that we have. Next slide. By the way, all of that runs in the cloud. So because HANA is nicely containerized, we can take it to any cloud provider. And so we take it to our cloud environment. I'm now going to talk about our AI strategy. And AI is, next slide, please. The AI is obviously a big topic right now. I think there will be big implications for universities starting today and going forward. I think the implications are going to be maybe a little more obvious than maybe what the press has been leading on, and more along the lines of what we kind of already know to be true. But in our case, we're really focused on this concept of vertical AI instead of horizontal AI. And there's an article I wrote about this at LinkedIn. You can find it there. The link is here on horizontal versus vertical AI. The concept is we want the AI ingesting and analyzing our data, using our data to help. So we're very interested in taking all of our content, our websites, our PDFs, our policies, et cetera, and bringing that into the AI environment through a concept called embeddings, and then have the large language model be able to let users interrogate and do things with that content. And so we're going to point the generative AI at that. There's also this notion of small AI and big AI. Big AI is what OpenAI is doing, which is a very large, expensive, and big and very powerful AI platform. But it also comes with a price tag. When we start to have the AI look deeper and deeper at our content, we don't necessarily need all of that capability. So this notion of small AI, smaller models, focused models, models that consume less energy and less power. So we're going to stay focused on what we call the small AI. By the way, Microsoft has announced this strategy for themselves. They're also focusing on small AI platforms. Qualcomm just announced the release of a whole bunch of models that they've released that are very small AI. I think Apple's AI initiative to get AI into the phones is an example of the small AI. So there'll be a range of AI from small to big. Next slide, please. It's not obvious which task is suitable for AI. So there's this notion of a jagged frontier line. Part of what institutions have to do is they have to start to get a feel for where that works for them, as we have done. We usually start with very simple tasks at first to do this. And a simple task might be, help me prepare a press release, for example. Next slide, please. A lot of things the AI can do. It's very good at summarizing. It's very good at developing, at serving like a super search or a question answer chatbot. It's good at content transformation. You can use it to classify things. Hey, I got this document. Classify this document as, boring, interesting, or exciting, for example. Obviously, we can use it for text and image generation. You're seeing lots of examples of that. Reasoning skills right now in the AI are not as good as we'd like it to be, but that's going to be a lot of work for everybody, including us, over the next couple of years. And another big use case is to read a document and extract pieces from that document that meet what I'm searching for, and then be able to process it or manipulate it further. All of these are very useful tasks that then we figure out where do we fit on this frontier line. Next slide. I've kind of went over this horizontal vertical AI strategy, and here's a sort of image to think about it. When you're focusing the AI inside your organization on your content, you're making it proprietary to you and competitive for you, because you have content about your university that's not like other universities, and that's a very important distinction for us. So we're really focused on that vertical AI. Next slide. At our university, we established a $2 million US fund for taking ideas and how to implement them from our user community across two dimensions, administrative and teaching and learning. And so those use cases have gone out for some time now. In some cases, we've actually done proof of concepts, which is, can it work? We've done some pilots to say, okay, it looks like it's working well. And then it's, okay, let's get it into production. So we've got various things in different stages right now. We have a tool called JD Helper that helps our user community write job descriptions. We're about to release a tool that helps our accounting folks that manage grants, university research grants, called Fund Manager Coach, which helps them with making entries and managing their environment. We got several teaching and learning generative AI pilots. That's where we're experimenting with Gemini from Google, with Microsoft's AI, and then the OpenAI platform, among others. So we're going to keep doing both. Big focus on the small AI, the open source AI, our on-premise AI, a little bit of focus on some of the others. Next slide. This is our Triton GPT, which is alive and well today. We have over 500 people in it today. We're going to be expanding that to more than 10,000 people over the next couple of months, probably up to 20,000. So we have a very large user community. So that expansion is underway as we speak. We're requiring everybody who gets access to complete some basic training. So we're level set people on AI and what it can and can't do. and that's been very helpful for our community. And we have a work group that helps prioritize all of this activity in terms of what new assistants we're going to create. You already see we have a general purpose AI assistant. We have a job description helper. We have a thing that helps you understand how to use Triton GPT as an assistant. There'll be more assistants coming in as time goes by within our environment. Next slide. Under the hoods, we have a rather interesting architecture using open source tools. The blue box there, the retrieval augmented generation box, is a collection of tools, all open source. The key one that you saw in the prior screen is our Dancer platform, which is actually a startup by two UC San Diego graduates that really specializes in bringing in institutional and corporate data into the environment so it's very useful for a chat-like interface for our user community. And it does a lot of the work that can then talk back and forth to and from the language model to set up the dialogues with the users very well. We also use two other tools, LangChain, a very popular tool for managing sequences of actions within an AI platform, and then a visual version of that called LangFlow, where a good analyst who's very familiar with generative AI, but maybe not a programmer, can come in and start to design their own solutions within the AI environment. We have a vector database, again, open source, that we bring all of our content in. So today we're pulling a lot of our content in on the lower right-hand box, UCSD content, into the environment. We're about to add SQL, natural language to SQL into our Activity Hub architecture. And that's going to be coming via Wolfram Mathematica. So we hope to get this going here in the next 30 days. And we're going to talk to you about how we're going to do it. We are very strong on the Wolfram platform. We already use it in our classes. Our students use it. We get a lot of graduates who are very familiar with it. And we're going to want to continue to use it within our AI platform. On the far right-hand side, that's our inference engine. While we use Llama 2 today for most everything, it's not the only model we're going to use. We've been experimenting with another open source LLM, Mixtral. There's still others out there. So in time, we'll probably have 3 to 4 of these going at any given time. Above that, we have a very intelligent caching engine that really speeds up access. It's gaining a lot of popularity in industry as well. It's called VLLM, and that gives us very high throughput, which helps lower our cost of our platform. Finally, for us and for our partners, we have a tool called Protopia that we can add to the architecture. What this does is it encrypts anything that is typed into the chat window by the user, so that as it's submitted to the language model doesn't know the exact words. It's all converted to numbers anyway. And if somebody wanted to try to reverse that back, it'd be gibberish. So it encrypts irreversibly the user chat content submitted for inference. This will be important down the road when we might want to tap into inference engines that are completely cloud-based, so that inference engine does not get proprietary information accidentally submitted to it. It's not a perfect solution in that a hacker could still come in and try to figure out what that question was by intercepting the responses back, but it really, really helps protect the data inside the system. That same inference engine can be used to pre-process information before it goes into the vector database. So we've really thought through a lot of the privacy angles in this architecture in order to really handle it well. Next slide, please. This will work very simply in our environment. We can connect Wolfram Mathematica right up into our Activity Hub, campus Activity Hubs via our API manager, a RESTful API. The metadata for all of the views that we have in our Activity Hubs becomes available to the vector database and hence to Mathematica. And then our chat tool can take a user query and convert it into SQL and then retrieve the right rows from the activity table right back. Many vendors are doing this right now as we speak. So all the BI vendors are adding these capabilities into their platforms. We're going to be doing so here as well. Next slide. So on what it's going to look like, well, I don't have an interface here to show you just yet, and we will in the next 30 days. It's going to look like a user typing in a query saying, hey, what's my enrollment in my mathematics class? And that gets turned into a SQL statement based on all the metadata that we have inside the system. And then that gets turned into a SQL presented to the Activity Hub, which then returns the rows back into Mathematica, which then can do some formatting. You can see examples of this for now, at least via the Mathematica plugin in ChatGPT-4. We'll see if it emerges as an app in the GPT store down the road, but either way, we're going to have it here in the Activity Hub to be able to visualize then the results right within the chat window. Again, this is democratizing access to the data, part of our concept here. Next slide. I think for the not only the administrative realm, but for the academic realm, Mathematica, certainly the academic realm, Wolfram has great use in universities today for students to learn data science and statistics and other techniques. With the combination of Wolfram Alpha and Mathematica, we can take natural language and turn it into more of a data science pipeline. So we can do plotting and graphics, we can do calculus, we can do geometry, we can do differential equations, predictive analytics, a whole bunch of things, all via natural language. Next slide, please. In addition, for the student population down the road, we expect people will want to continue to use, even without our Activity Hub, just with Wolfram and Mathematica alone, give students the ability to do comparisons. For example, here, let's write a short piece on comparing 2 stars, Altair with Betelgeuse, using data from Wolfram, and boom, there it goes, and Wolfram can produce the high-level chart explaining some of the details. I think this is where everything will be going in AI, is certainly bringing content back, but also now bringing facts back from knowledge bases, and Wolfram is a great example of that. Next slide. People are wondering, how much is this costing us? Well, part of the reason we're doing this is we want to work very hard to continue to lower the cost of this. We're very worried about the cost and the energy power actually needed to power these things. And so today our cost structure is about $6 to $7 per user per month US. This is less than the $20 to $30 per user per month that are the common prices for these sorts of things. And so all of our engineering effort is focused on how to lower that and lower that. We've gotten some interest from other universities, including some K-12 institutions. And so we're in very, very early conversations on that. So we are looking for collaborators. And the purpose of the collaboration really is to help us with figuring out ways to further democratize this so that the open source AI can live and can be used and enjoyed by educational institutions, and that we can help continue to lower costs for everybody for the platform. Next slide. And that's my discussion today. Very high level, very quick. Happy to take any questions and get any feedback.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Vince. That was so detailed, and I feel like we got to touch upon a lot of the nitty-gritty, but also the high-level things, which is also really important too. So thank you so much for your overview. Now that we have a little time at the end, we are going to be answering some questions. I see a couple questions have already rolled in, so I'm happy to start rolling through those. So first off, it looks like our first question, pretty simple one. The market for AI is all over the place. How is UC San Diego affording all of this?
Well, yeah, it is all over the place, and you can kind of tell we've done this on premise. We've taken advantage of the knowledge and expertise we have by virtue of our supercomputer center. That has enabled us, and mainly it's the knowledge, to really jumpstart. We have an ability to purchase hardware through that supercomputer center relationship in ways that help us. But when you actually do the math on doing this on premise versus in the cloud, and you do this with open source software, the price suddenly drops very quickly. So that's how we do it to make it affordable. But you know, and it's kind of a passion. How can we continue to do that so that we can keep this? The other reason we're doing that is because we know that perhaps prices will come down over time in the cloud, and we want to be able to take advantage of the cloud as well. So if there are AI models that exist entirely in the cloud, we want to take advantage of them too, provided the price is good. And our architecture fully supports that. So we can run clouds kind of in any environment, quite frankly. So we're not necessarily locked in to a totally on-premise approach. We could take our entire on-premise solution and lift it up into the cloud if we wished as well, too. So we want to be fully committed to an on-premise, a hybrid, or a fully in the cloud architecture at any point in time. Why? Because the market is so dynamic right now. We don't know exactly where it's going to end up. So we're kind of keeping our options open.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Our next question, it looks like, is for Tim. So what is the most difficult aspect of implementing SLCM?
I'd say one of the trickiest, or I would say most time-consuming and painful things sometimes can be data migration. Just because a lot of times you'll find customers, when they really dig into their own data, they'll find inconsistencies and things that they need to clean up in preparation for that data migration. And then, of course, you have to take those data elements and data structures in your legacy system and then convert those to the SLCM data structures to be able to be imported into the system. So we usually tell customers right away from almost the get-go, let's start the data conversion conversation. The other thing I would say is, this is advice as old as time, but steer away. It's implementing a new system is really an opportunity to analyze your business processes and gain efficiencies. And still to this day, we still see customers that sometimes try to implement legacy processes in a new system. So focus on really improving, the services that you offer to your constituents by really rethinking business processes and getting rid of unnecessary activity, so to speak.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Tim. And it looks like we have another one for UC San Diego. So how is the university leadership and community reacting to the new capabilities?
It's really interesting watching our Triton GPT roll out, because the staff who jumped in have been really excited and energetic and enthused and excited, which has been kind of fascinating to watch. Typically, especially with enterprise system change, there's some enthusiasm, but there's also a lot of fear and trepidation for many folks. But not so with AI. I think it's not so much a trick, but the guidance we're giving everybody is, hey, this tool is very useful, but it's not going to be perfect, right? So you have to use critical thinking when you use it. In fact, if you use critical thinking, you'll do better with it. So you think of it as a kind of a person sitting next to you that can help you, but might not always have the exact answer. And then you can go really far with it. So the leadership is certainly behind it, no question. But more importantly, the staff who've been onboarding, I think they've been excited about it, and we're going to see a lot of use cases grow over the next year.
Awesome. Thanks, Vince. Yeah, I don't know how you couldn't be excited about this. So that's great to hear. It looks like there is one more for you, Vince. It's what's in it for UC San Diego for making this available to others in partnership with invenioLSI?
Well, what's really in it for us is learning. I was just talking to another university today, and they're thinking some things going, wow, we didn't think of that. Maybe we can collaborate and learn. So how can we collaborate and learn together? So we get out of it learning. Our mission is really as a research university, is to do things that help and benefit society, not just through education, but through the research. So in a sense, what we're doing here with Triton GPT is an extension of that. We're not trying to make money, because we're not for profit, so I can't make money. And we're trying to really help improve the state of student and general university data management. So you can call it do-goodery work, which that's what universities are here for, to do good. So that's really what we get out of it. It sounds kind of simple and maybe, trite, but it's the truth.
That's awesome. That's really good to hear. It looks like we have one more question. What controls the various cards and links the user sees, and what if the individual is both a student and a faculty member or administrator?
Yeah, so it's all what a user sees or cards or links that are available to them is dictated again by their roles and authorizations. So if I'm both a student and maybe I'm a faculty member as well, right? Any of those types of roles, every role in the system has specific authorizations and access to certain applications, and those authorizations actually we call them structural authorizations. They actually read the org structure and where someone falls within the org structure so that that individual only sees data within their particular organization. So again, it's all roles and authorizations driven, and the system is always reading to see what roles are assigned to this particular user. Some of those roles could be academic roles, like for a faculty member, administrative roles like a registrar, a graduate assistant, something like that, and then others are student roles as well.
Awesome. Thanks so much. So I think that does it for our presentation today. I want to say a big thank you to Vince Kellen from UC San Diego. Vince, is there any way, how can people get in contact with you if they want to learn more?
They can just send an email to vkellen, VKELLEN at ucsd.edu, and our teams. They can also go look at studentactivityhub.com, and there's a website there with all sorts of links to information and content. So
awesome. Thanks so much.
And of course through invenioLSI, they can send questions to you as well, and you guys will know where to funnel it.
Awesome. Thanks so much. And if you want to get in contact with invenioLSI directly, you can go to invenioLSI.com. That's our website, or speak to our sales team at sales@invenioLSI.com. Tim, also, thank you so much for your SLCM overview. And we hope to have another webinar soon. So keep an eye out for that email with a follow-up to any other questions that we didn't get to today, along with the recording. You'll get that on March 6th. So thank you so much, everyone, and have a great day.
You too.